ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतेर्भक्त। Hare Krishna. We are continuing our daily Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. We are currently discussing Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 7, the sacrifice performed by Daksha. Verse 52 and 53. We'll start with verse 52. तस्मिन् ब्रह्मण्यद्वितीये अद्वितीये केवले परमात्मनि ब्रह्मरुद्रौ च भूतानि भेदेनाग्नो अनुपश्यति. Synonyms: Tasmin, him, Brahmani, the supreme Brahman, Advitiye, without a second, Kevale, being one, Parama Atmani, the super soul, Brahma, Rudra, both Brahma and Shiva, Cha, and Bhutani, the living entities, Bhedena, with separation, Agnaha, one who is not properly conversant, Anupashyati, thinks. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhijit Narvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: The Lord continued, one who is not in proper knowledge thinks that demigods like Lord Shiva and Brahma are independent, or he even thinks that the living entities are independent. Purport: The living entities, including Brahma, are not independently separated, but are counted within the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the super soul in every living entity, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, he is directing everyone in the activities of the material modes of nature. No one can act independently of the sanction of the Lord, and therefore, indirectly, no one is different from the Supreme Person. Certainly not Brahma and Rudra, who are incarnation of material nature's modes of passion and ignorance. Verse 53. यथापुमान स्वांगेषु क्षीरपाण्यादिषु क्वचित् पाराक्य बुद्धिं कुरुते एवं भूतेषु मत्परः. Synonyms: Yata, as, Puman, a person, na, not, Swa Angeshu, in his own body, Shiraha, Pani Adishu, between the head and the hands and other parts of the body, Kvachit, sometimes, Parakya Buddhim, differentiation, Kurite, make, Evam, thus, Bhuteshu, among living entities, Mat Paraha, my devotee. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhijit Narvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: A person with average intelligence does not think the head and other parts of the body to be separate. Similarly, my devotee does not differentiate Vishnu, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, from anything or any living entity. Purport: Whenever there is a disease in any part of the body, the whole body takes care of the ailing part. Similarly, a devotee's oneness is manifested in his compassion for all conditioned souls. Bhagavad Gita 5.18 says, Pandita Samadarshinaha. Those who are all learned see everyone's conditional life equally. Devotees are compassionate to every conditioned soul, and therefore they are known as Aparakya Buddhi. Because devotees are learned and know that every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, they preach Krishna consciousness to everyone so that everyone may be happy. If a particular part of the body is diseased, the whole attention of the body goes to that part. Similarly, devotees care for any person who is forgetful of Krishna and therefore in material consciousness. The equal vision of the devotee is that he works to get all living entities back home, back to Godhead. Let's offer some prayers, and I think today will be a short discussion. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण before we start the discussion, I would like to apologize. I couldn't spend the amount of time I should have prepared, put it for preparing for this discussion. So the discussion might be a short one. So let's see. Um, so this is we are almost at the end of the section of the pastime of Daksha and Lord Shiva and Mother Sati, and this is the section where Lord Vishnu has appeared and then is now responding back to all the prayers Daksha and others have done, other demigods, and we're in the section where Lord Vishnu is speaking. So a couple of things that were kind of fascinating were this. I think it was a few months back when Hariparshad Prabhu came. He was also discussing. We were still in this section of Lord Shiva, Daksha, and all of that, and he was discussing about Lord Shiva is how is not Lord Shiva non-different than the Supreme Lord, and in that he was also quoting this specific reference of that Shiva is one of his guna avatars. And then from that perspective, also Lord Shiva is non-different from. He was very specifically saying anybody who sees Lord Shiva as being different and who sees Lord Shiva as being indifferent, different and also kind of indifferent is also not proper. And then Srila Prabhupada here is then and interestingly the purport that we have. So I remember quite long back. Um, I don't remember the devotee, but during summer vacation, sometimes I would have this fortune of going and staying at ISKCON Chowpatty. So during one of the summer vacations, so there was this devotee, I think from UK or US. He basically did a complete research on Bhaktivedanta purports and correlating with how these are kind of manifestations of, as Srila Prabhupada puts it, his ecstasies is manifestation of his ecstasies. But how are with that? It's not that Prabhupada was just randomly thinking of certain, um, how do I put it, kind of random realizations that he has, but how are these Bhaktivedanta purports, even though they are very personalized for the present contemporary society, not just of Srimad Bhagavatam, but Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and all the other Chaitanya Charitamrita that Srila Prabhupada has commented on. This devotee was explaining how is it that they are very personalized realizations of Srila Prabhupada, but they are almost kind of not in a derogatory way, but like a cut copy paste of the previous. So the kind of Srila Prabhupada, as we all know, kind of used to go through this a huge manuscript or a huge book that had multiple commentaries of various different acharyas, I think almost in tens. And then he used to kind of meditate on that, and then what he gave here are the Bhaktivedanta purports. And one he actually specifically took one specific purport from Bhagavad Gita. I forgot the verse number. And interestingly, what Srila Prabhupada did in that purport was, I think it was 3 paragraphs, and each paragraph was kind of a succinct understanding of the purport or the commentary of one specific acharya. And somehow Srila Prabhupada was so beautifully able to kind of, because when you write it in a paragraph, there is a continuation of thought. It cannot be that, because when an acharya is giving a commentary, for example, this purport that Srila Prabhupada has given, there is a beginning, there is Srila Prabhupada starts with certain statements, then there is kind of a discussion that happens between the paragraph, and then he ends the paragraph. So that's how the literature or the grammar of any language, when you have a paragraph, there is a beginning, there's something that you want to convey in the end, and then it kind of ends with certain things as part of the paragraph, and then there is also a continuation of thought with respect to the whole article or the whole purport. So when these acharyas were doing their when so what Prabhu did was he kind of went through the acharya's purport and then discussed, then was showing how Srila Prabhupada has completely, so expertly, succinctly kind of summarized that one. And then from there, then Srila Prabhupada comes to the next paragraph, which is, I think the first one was Baldev Vidyabhushan's, and then there were some statements from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So how Srila Prabhupada was so beautifully kind of bring it, and then, but if you just look at it, each paragraph was like a cut copy paste of the succinct expressions of understanding of that specific acharya's commentary. And so it was when I was reading this, it kind of because this purport is also this there's so this purport is also kind of a combination of two acharyas purports, and then Prabhupada kind of modifies the language and kind of makes it much more easier for us to understand. One is Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's purport, and then there is one more I couldn't get the name of, but so it's kind of so beautiful how Srila Prabhupada is these purports are kind of clear indication to say that Srila Prabhupada is truly representative of the of the parampara, and being an acharya, and then kind of the founder acharya and acharya that we have, that he's in the position. The language is not exactly the same, because Vishnu, the times and the places where Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur lived, and this is kind of different. So Prabhupada kind of keeps the essence intact of what Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is trying to put, and makes it in a way that a modern person can kind of understand. So that I found, when I was reading this purport and trying to kind of prepare for the discussion, that whole discussion that Prabhu gave was just came back into my mind, and I was appreciating um, of how there's all of how when devotees say that everything is there in Srila Prabhupada's purports, it is not, as it's similarly, I think, what how His Holiness Rompat Swami Maharaj was also saying, when we say Srimad Bhagavatam is complete, it is not a kind of an insult or a derogatory statement of the other Vedic literatures, but it is just an appreciation of the exalted nature and position of Srimad Bhagavatam. And similarly, when we say that what Srila Prabhupada gave through his purports is complete, it doesn't mean that we are putting down Sri Jiva Goswamis or Srila Vishnu Chakravartis, Thakurs, or Bhakti Siddhantas, or any Acharya's commentary. It is just to kind of glorify the effort, the almost out of the world effort that Srila Prabhupada had put in to kind of condense everything. And what Srila Prabhupada has given is a kind of a condensed, succinct understanding of all the acharyas, whatever that we could think of. So from that perspective, what Srila Prabhupada gave is kind of complete. And as even we all understand, Krishna is complete, but the spiritual world is complete. We all know that, like Om Purnam Idam Purnam Purnamudachyate. Spiritual world, not just Krishna or anything in spiritual world is complete, but we also understand that it is ever expanding. So how can something that is already complete can kind of expand and make it more complete? That's the beautiful understanding that Achita Beda Veda Tattva can give us. So similarly, this purpose that we have, what Srila Prabhupada given is complete, but as Rompa, as His Holiness Rompa Swami Maharaj puts it, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then brings it is the rasa understanding, and what Jiva Goswami brings it is much more nuanced theological understanding, and what other acharyas bring is kind of different, and then that makes it more complete. It's not what Srila Prabhupada gave is complete, when what acharyas give is further complete, and so it's kind of ever expanding in that perspective of understanding through what we have from the spiritual world. So yeah, that somehow, yeah, this was not part of the plan, but I think an impromptu appreciation that I felt about Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas. So now back to the discussion. So what, again, as I think we started with it, but then we kind of went in a different direction. So what Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas are saying is Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and not just Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, but every other living entity, are not different from the Supreme Lord or the Super Soul, because we are all Shakti Amshas. We are all the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. So from that, there's actually a beautiful further explanation that Srila Prabhupada in fact gives in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 1, verse 1. Janmadhyasya Anvayat. So that verse. So Srila Prabhupada says this. The Lord knows everything directly and indirectly, and He is cognizant of all minute details, and He is fully independent. He is compared to a mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in so many different forms are compared to objects made from the gold, such as gold rings, necklaces, and so on. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively, the gold in the mine is different. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth. So when it is said here, Lord demigod like Lord Brahma and Shiva are independent, who is not in proper knowledge, and he even thinks that the living entities are independent. So it's with this understanding that nothing is absolutely equal with absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth, because as Srila Prabhupada also puts it, where is my cursor? Srila Prabhupada is also putting it, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are the guna avatars, or the incarnations of the material nature's modes of passion and ignorance. So they are the guna avatars. So from that perspective, they are not independent or non-different from the avatari Krishna. And also, all of us living entities are the Shakti Amshas, which in fact even Brahma and Lord Rudra are the Shakti Amshas. And Shakti is not different from Shaktiman. And at the same time, Shakti cannot survive independent of the Shaktiman. Just because we are saying that Shaktiman is complete by himself, but Shakti cannot function independent of Shaktiman. As Srila Prabhupada also famously puts it, if the hand thinks that I want to survive independent of the entire body, I don't want to serve the entire body, I want to be independent, then it kind of stops its existence. Similarly, a leaf. So a Shakti cannot be an independent entity outside of the entire Shaktiman. So all the living entities, which includes Lord Brahma, Lord Indra, are not independent, because they are the Shakti Amshas and are always dependent on the Shakti. So that was the first point that I wanted to discuss on. And then the second one, interestingly, as Srila Prabhupada also puts it, is discusses about the compassion. And with that understanding of Shakti and Shaktiman, then a devotee then approaches this Pandita Samadarshinaha, where it's not that, and I think it was when Umapati Prabhu came, he was also discussing about the discussion that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had with this devotee in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I forgot the name. Where they are discussing about who is a devotee. Every time this devotee meets Mahaprabhu, he asks, how can I recognize a devotee? And every time Mahaprabhu gives certain deeper answers. So there is the first answer that Mahaprabhu gives is anybody who is chanting Harinam, his holy name is a devotee. And then he goes further, and then he goes further, and then he goes further, and then he goes further. So when we say of equality of vision, being independent from the Lord, it's not to negate the individuality of every entity that we have. And with that, so the independence and dependency, this has been one of my thoughts through the Festival of Holy Name retreat that we had. um, we're all trying to cultivate that dependence on the holy name, but through the retreat, it was especially because I was assisting Amritikali Mataji and Maharaj with taking care of the kid sessions. Um, it was so very clear the dependency of each other that we have, and in that dependence of each other that we have, of where we are kind of dependent on each other to perform the cumulative service of taking care of the children and the entire retreat. There is that interdependency that was there, but in that interdependency, each of us were independently also playing a role. So just because we were as a team, when I say as a team, the participants, the cooking team, the devotees who were getting the groceries, the speakers, it was kind of, we were all interdependent on each other, but independently we also had a very specific role to perform. Either it could be just attending the retreat, either it could be cooking. So there is a very specific dependent in that uh, interdependence that we had. There was a beautiful independence of expression of our capabilities, of our services that we were doing. So similarly, when we say that Pandita Samadarshinaha, we are not kind of negating the variegatedness or the beauty of individual um, expression of our devotion to the Lord. So it's kind of beautiful to think from that we are all dependent on the Lord, but in that dependency, it's not that there is nothing that I have to do. There is so much that that is to be done, that can be done, that has to be done. And and with that understanding, devotees are compassionate to every conditioned soul. And it's also so beautiful that whenever we are reading these um, any acharyas biographies, especially Srila Prabhupada's biographies that are written through many of his servants, or kind of extended biographies of different acharyas, like taking the biography of Bhaktichara Maharaj, or taking the biography of Jayananda Prabhu and Vishnujan Maharaj through the Radha Damodar Vilas, or any other biography that you could take. You could see that Srila Prabhupada was was equal to everyone, but he was also very personalized. There are so many pastimes that Srila Prabhupada, if we can think of, where Srila Prabhupada was very specific in saying what are the specific instructions that he wanted to kind of give to this person. And when he was seeing that, in fact, one of the letter that he wrote to Brahmananda Prabhu was that do not circulate my letters, because it was so happening in the beginning of his that the letters that Srila Prabhupada was sending to Brahmananda Prabhu, then because it was a very personalized instruction that Srila Prabhupada was giving to Brahmananda Prabhu for a situation that was happening in New York. And that situation doesn't exist in Boston, but somehow the same instruction was being applied in Boston, and that was creating some kind of unwanted situations, and rather than actually resolving the situations. Then Srila Prabhupada was very specific, and Brahmananda Prabhu was saying that do not circulate my letters. These are very specific to you. But in the same way, there are certain instructions that Srila Prabhupada also gave in letters that are also universal, that have applied. Where in some cases, Srila Prabhupada was directly talking to some devotee, when they wanted to take deities as part of their traveling Sankirtan party. And then Sri Prabhupada said that I'm not only saying it to you, but in general, I don't want any devotees to travel. And Radha Damodar were kind of an exception to that. But so there are certain kind of, Sri Prabhupada was very personalized in that with his interactions with his devotees and disciples. So these are the two points that I want to discuss about how we are so dependent on each other, so dependent on the mercy of the Lord. And in that dependency, there is a lot of independent expression of gratitude, bhakti that we'll be doing. And with that understanding, there is also that equality, because everybody of us are dependent on the Lord and not just on the Lord. And in fact, I remember this was the point that Maharaj gave yesterday. I don't have it. She was saying, through bhakti and bhaktas is how a devotee gets to the, through bhakti and bhaktas are the only way that a devotee can access the mercy of the Lord. So either if you don't have bhakti or if you don't have bhakta, there is no way that we can access the mercy of the Lord. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but how Maharaj put it on the presentation was so beautiful. So then I'd like to just end with this expression that Maharaj was giving yesterday. When he said back home, back to God, it doesn't mean that we let go of everything and then are there, but back home, back to Godhead is this understanding of always wanting and longing for the service of the Lord, and that situation and that circumstance is back home, back to Godhead. So, and Srila Prabhupada is saying the equal vision of the devotee is that he works to get all the living entities back home, back to Godhead. So, I pray and I sincerely pray that may I cultivate these two qualities that we discuss, and one point be able to be in that wonderful circumstance of always longing to serve Shri Radha Shyam Sundar. Hare Krishna. If there are any corrections or if not, then we'll end. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyascha Anantapati Vaishnava ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very wonderful class. It was always nice to hear from you.
Hare Krishna.
Good day.